Let's get lively, everyone. Welcome back. I'd like to start off by wishing everyone a happy Jewish New Year, Lashana Tova to everyone. But let's jump right into it. Right now we are talking about the big news of the day. And what news is that? That is the Carmelo Anthony trade. Carmelo Anthony has officially and finally been let loose from his constraints, which was the New York Knicks, and traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in a deal which I'd like to call pennies on the dollar for Doug McDermott and his Cantor and a future second-round pick. Holy shit. Oklahoma City has pulled off the best offseason I've ever seen. Sam Presti in free agency signed Patrick Patterson and re-signed Andre Roberson. Those might not seem like big deals until you factor in what comes next. They gave up Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, and a second-round pick. And you know what those turned into? Brace yourselves, everyone. Carmelo Anthony and Paul George. What the fuck? We have to commend Sam Presti for a moment for once again showing us how to pull a rabbit out of a hat, or simply more so just turn shit into gold. No offense to those players who were traded, but it's Carmelo Anthony and Paul George, especially on a team where all you had really was Westbrook at that point. The Carmelo trade is a perfect example of teams taking advantage and capitalizing on disgruntled all-stars. OKC has managed to put together a big three in one season since Durant's left. In that one season, you had a guy, Russell Westbrook, who went from being a second fiddle or a 1B type player with Durant on a team to a triple-double machine, breaking Oscar Robertson's record and becoming the MVP of the league. And now you're adding Carmelo Anthony and Paul George to that lineup. Holy, I don't even understand. Now that they have Carmelo, they can do small ball lineups such as Westbrook, Roberson, Paul George, Carmelo, and Patterson, all of which are mobile, reliable three-point shooters, and Roberson and Paul George can make up for Carmelo's defensive inability. Or, who knows, we might end finally seeing a Carmelo Anthony that plays both sides of the ball. Who would know? In crazier situations, they could throw Roberson on the bench as a six-man and go with a big lineup. Westbrook, George, Anthony, Patterson, and Adams. Stop a minute and think about that. 1 through 4 can shoot threes from any range. Then you put in Steven Adams, who is a mobile, very, very mobile, and great defensive big man into that picture. You have a lineup that could play against Golden State. The lineup possibilities are endless. And there's always going to be one player on the floor guaranteed to make up for Carmelo Anthony's defensive inabilities. And who knows, we may finally get to see the Carmelo Anthony that plays both sides of the ball because he won't have the ball in his hand. OKC won this deal. McDermott was in the last 2 years of his deal and getting sparing minutes at this point in Oklahoma City. I'm a personal fan of Enes Kanter, both him as a person on the court, as a teammate, what he does as a social activist, and what he does and represents for the NBA alone. As basketball goes, he was a deadweight contract for the Thunder. He wasn't right offensively for that team. Defensively, even more so. They need a guy to pair with Kanter that can take the defensive loads off of him. His real plus minus isn't that pretty, and it's not going to get any better. So they managed to turn a guy who was on a very big contract. McDermott still has value, and a second round pick, which, as I've said so many times on this show, is just a way to sweeten a deal, to convince a team to put it over the top. Look at that Kyrie Irving deal. Like I said, it's just to sweeten it a little bit, make sure to convince him a little bit more, and the deal's done. That's it. Oklahoma City has pulled off one of the best trades of this offseason and pulled off one of the best off seasons in recent years. I'm still surprised, and it's been a couple hours since reading this news. As for the Knicks, the inevitable Carmelo Anthony saga has finally ended. It took 87 days, a lot of annoying reports, a lot of quote-unquote sources giving out a lot of information about a lot of different teams that were potentially interested and could potentially get Carmelo Anthony, but we finally got the one team that came out of the blue just like it did for Paul George. The Knicks finally struck a deal. I'm happy to see this. As a basketball fan, I'm happy to see this era has begun. It is the end of bailing James Dolan out as a Knicks fan and for anything wrong with the Knicks, and it signals the end of an era that should have been over years ago. It's so sad because I love Carmelo Anthony. I would love to have seen him won, and he deserves to, and now I think he has a better shot at it. But he wasted most of his prime in a Knick uniform. Dolan loved having Carmelo around. We already know this. He wanted to make it work for years, but it just never really clicked. And the one season that it did work with Mike Woodson, I don't know what happened. And that was such a great team, and they gelled so well. But here we are now. Carmelo Anthony got traded for dimes on the dollar by the Knicks, and the original deal that was supposedly going to happen seemed a little bit better than what they ended up getting. They refused the offer from the Rockets because they didn't want to take on Ryan Anderson person in that trade. I've constantly said that was a smart move for them to do, and they stood firm, and look what ended up happening. They ended up getting Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and a pick. That's not bad. The biggest part of it all, they got rid of Melo, which they needed to. Anything on top of that is a silver lining, because let's face it, Phil Jackson's commentary and Carmelo being completely and publicly disgruntled by playing for this team ruined most of his value and ruined the ability for the Knicks to trade him anywhere else. And not to mention the no trade clause. You didn't fucking help yourself, buddy. And now the Knicks can move on by pairing Enes Kanter with Porzingis down low to give him a center to secure him as a power forward, 1, and 2, someone to run with down the floor. Porzingis will make up for Kanter's defensive lapses, like I've said, and that's good because the Knicks are going to need that, and they're not really looking to win any games. So probably going to give a lot of playing time to Kanter and a lot more playing time now to Porzingis. And Kanter is an immediate upgrade at center from who they were running previously, of which has probably been 3 or 4 guys. Can't even remember their names because it's probably not as relevant. They are now going to have a starting lineup potentially with Ramon Sessions, Jarrett Jack, or Frank Ntilikina, whoever wins that point guard battle, Tim Hardaway Jr. because you spent all that damn money on him, Doug McDermott or Michael Beasley, Kristaps Porzingis, and Enes Kanter. Overall, that's a healthy mix of veteran leadership, raw young talent, a superstar, and Michael Beasley. Now, there are 3 things that I want to make clear that Knicks fans should know. Frank Ntilikina will most likely start for your team this year. He was your 8th overall pick in this draft. He built quite a reputation with scouts. I mean, this guy came out of the woodwork, and then you started seeing his name appear and the highlights come, and it's like, all right, could be somewhere near the Dante Exum-esque. So, made his way on the radar, and now he's playing for your team. The Knicks aren't in any situation to make the playoffs, even in the East. So, giving the young rookie time to develop chemistry with Porzingis, transitioning to the NBA style game as opposed to EuroLeague is completely in their favor. 1, not only to get him used to it and make him a good player, but 2, they're not going to try and win. On top of that, he's going to be mentored by 2 great veteran point guards, Ramon Sessions and Jarrett Jack. I'd like to take a moment. Jarrett Jack, man, I am so freaking glad you're back on a roster. Congratulations. I love you, man. I've been a diehard fan of yours since the old days, OG days. We're talking about Portland. We're talking about with Golden State, New Orleans, Toronto, all those guys. I'm still looking to get my own OG Jarrett Jack Portland jersey, man. So if you know or you're watching or anyone watching has one, knows where one is in a medium, I'm your guy. I'll buy it immediately. PM me. Back to the topic, though. Ntilikina is presumably their point guard of the future, so this is in their benefit overall. Doug McDermott, or Dougie McBuckets, or Dougie Buckets. Losing Carmelo leaves a big hole at small forward, but this kid has something to prove. I'm super high on Doug McDermott in this one. He has so much potential, and he's already a household name from what he did at Creighton. And being another one of those Jimmer Fredette-esque stories, but he now has the potential and is in the perfect situation to pull off Jeremy Lin-esque return to the limelight story or come out of nowhere in the woodwork, because New York is known for doing that for players. He'll battle with Michael Beasley for the small forward position at the start, but I think he'll end up winning it over with his play. He's such a dynamic player, and he's definitely a scoring machine, and he'll have the opportunity and a chip on his shoulder to do so. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's got nothing to lose at this point. He needs to step his game up, and he'll play. Finally, now is the time to double down on Porzingis. No more fucking around. This is his team, and this is his time. In New York, listen to me closely. All excuses were just traded. Carmelo is gone. You are entering this era of basketball. You have to take this seriously. We've already seen Porzingis' willingness to not give a fuck with the exit interview that Phil Jackson had. Didn't show up and even had the balls to record it on social media that he was bike riding around New York City. Get it? He'll leave. It doesn't matter what you do. Take it seriously. He was young at one point. He was under contract. He might not get so lucky next time. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode of The Desk Chat. If you want to see more videos, just give me that little like or subscribe, and I really appreciate that. Also, check out my Facebook page and my Instagram for more stories, crazy highlights, and everything going on in sports. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.